what's taking place in South Asia. Now, peace talks between Afghanistan and Pakistan have ended without a breakthrough, marking a major setback for regional stability efforts in South Central Asia. Now, the negotiations were held in Istanbul. They were mediated by Turkey and Qatar, and it was aimed to reach a long-term truce after deadly border clashes earlier this month. Pakistan's information minister has now come out and stated that the dialogue failed to produce a workable solution, while also blaming the Afghan side of avoiding core issues. Meanwhile, Afghan officials have not yet responded to the statement, although there was a formal statement put out yesterday that if Pakistan escalates, they will retaliate. Now, according to reports, the main disagreement is centered on Islamabad's accusation that the Taliban controls the TTP, which is a militant group responsible for recent attacks inside Pakistan. The failure to reach a consensus follows a series of violent incidents along the 2,600-kilometer border between Pakistan and Afghanistan, that is the contentious Durand Line. It is important to note that both sides agreed to a ceasefire initially, which was brokered in Doha on the 19th of October. Of course, it's a very fragile. With us on the broadcast is Ms. Shruti Das Gupta, international affairs expert, joining us from New Delhi. Thank you so much for taking our time and speaking to us on NewsX World. In fact, there was a report that was published by the Sunday Guardian yesterday highlighting that there was a phone call made from Islamabad before finalization of the agreement. The agreement was just about to be inked, but there was a phone call that was made. And Pakistan initially agreed to not letting the ISIS being used on its soil against the Afghan Taliban. Pakistan had initially also agreed, reportedly, to not violating Afghan airspace and preventing the use of US drones from its side to target Afghanistan. We do know that the United States is eyeing the Bagram air base as well. There are also reports that Qatar and Turkey, their officials were surprised by Pakistan's abrupt U-turn after the phone call that was made. Then Pakistan resorted to off-topic interventions and a frequent use of harsh language as well. In light of all of this, who in your assessment could have made the phone call itself? Could it have been Asim Munir? Could it have been the ISI? Or even for that matter, maybe the pressure was mounted from the United States or the CIA?
Greetings to you, Pia, and your viewers. From what I understand, it can be any of the following and the results would always be the same, because the pressure point for Afghanistan has been created at the behest of USA, so that one, they can gouge out the kind of security provisions Afghanistan and the Taliban have within the nation and its borders, and two, so that they can create enough of pressure on the Taliban regime to hand over the Bagram base, which is worth millions and billions to Trump, and is geopolitically very important, geographically very important for the central command of US to hold. So this particular skirmish that we are seeing, the conflict that we are seeing, may have its roots, which is hundreds of years old, going back right to the Durand Line. But what it basically shows us is that Pakistan now sits firmly in the lap of America, and it is willing to do its dirty job once more under the pretext of trying to prevent terrorist hubs in Afghanistan from creating trouble in Pakistan. Whereas this was, from my sources, what I understand, this was what was the last bit of the conversation that kind of held back the entire process, snagged the entire process, where Pakistan resorted to claiming that Afghanistan needs to control the terror proxies of TTP and TLP, who are now protesting on the streets of Islamabad, Lahore and other places. And Afghanistan, in its response, said they are your people, they are your proxies, your groups. We have no rights to pull them back. Your military needs to deal with it. Please do not try and pin any protest that happens in your land by your people on Afghanistan. So as a result, the entire peace talks kind of snagged. They did not find common ground. Also, what is commonly known is that both the Turks as well as the Qataris were shocked by the sudden about-face that was done by the Pakistani officials, while they were claiming that we can solve our hostile differences through dialogues, and suddenly they turn around pointing fingers and putting on unreasonable requests on the table, which no sane nation or regime would agree to. So from what I understand, the phone call triggered a series of events that would lead to the failure of talks, which has led to Khwaja Asif, that is the defense minister of Pakistan, turning around and saying India has interfered with Taliban and India is instigating Taliban and making sure that there is no peace in Southern Asia. So it's a larger, complex dialogue that Pakistan wants to present, but at the soul of it lies the interests of USA in Central Asia, and Pakistan is just being their pawn, bought and paid for by crypto dollars.
You've spoken about the US Central Command. Interestingly, recently we'd seen one of their senior generals, General Michael Eric Kurilla, hold a meeting with Pakistani officials as well. He met Asim Munir in Pakistan as well and vowed support for the Pakistani army during this particular meeting. I want to understand from you, considering Afghanistan's geostrategic relevance, what is the larger game plan of the United States?
Well, if you look at the position of Afghanistan, it shares borders with Russia, China, as well as Iran. And it has a position of influence over Pakistan as well as India. So if and when USA manages to gain control or foothold into the Afghani territory, they can very easily mobile resources, military resources, to ensure any skirmish that happens or any kind of military impact that is required in this particular zone, with both Russia, China being its prominent opposers, as well as Iran being its recent enemy in a war where Iran and Israel were fighting a war, and US played a proxy on behalf of Israel. So in all of these terms, USA is not on friendly terms with Iran, Russia, China, and with India, we are kind of having tense relations as well. We've known USA to kind of support Pakistan because Pakistan allows its resources and its land to be used as a farm for terror organizations that can ensure that there is disruption in South Asia as such. And USA does not mind helping Pakistan in doing this because it ensures there's an instability in the region as well as increased foreign interference via USA and its proxies. So Afghanistan is a big zone of influence for USA. They had lost it in the 90s, 80s, 90s, when the Soviet army had walked into Afghanistan. And for that, they created Taliban itself from the grounds of Pakistan. So we know that they have a history of allowing extremist mentalities to be, nurtured by Pakistani generals and then sent forth to fight a proxy war. So I know that it sounds mean when I say this, but unfortunately for all of us in the world, USA is not a friend of anybody else except USA, and they are willing to go to any depths as well as using Pakistan and its land and its people to nurture harmful anti-social elements just to further their own gains in the geopolitical game.
You've spoken about Russia and China. How do you think the Chinese could be, or the Russians for that matter, could be viewing this? We've seen the Moscow dialogue being held recently as well. Do you think the Chinese are now, increasing their focus as far as Afghanistan is concerned, because they do share a border through the Wakhan Strip as well?
Yes, you're right. And they have a lot of trade that is happening in that Gilgit-Baltistan area, and that entire land that has been granted to them illegally, Indian land granted to them by Pakistan. So there is a lot of trade that is happening through that. China has a BRI status with both Afghanistan and Pakistan. In fact, right after Operation Sindoor, both the Talibani designate a foreign minister as well as the foreign minister for Pakistan met in China for BRI and its status-related updates. So China has stakes in the game, it has skin in the game. Also, if there is a skirmish on that side, China is already completely in the know of how much in the lap of USA has Asim Munir placed the entire nation of Pakistan. In fact, the very same minerals as well as ports that were offered to China are now being offered to USA, and I believe the Pasni port was offered to USA, where we have already the problem of Qatar happening for China. So, and at that time, Pakistan had said that China needs to understand that the Pakistani interests come first. So Pakistan is head over heels in debt to China. And if China decides to pull the rug, Pakistan will need a lot of dollars from USA to save its skin. So China is playing the watch and wait game, seeing how this particular zone goes. If it sees that the US influence in the region becomes too much for it to go, I would not be shocked to see that China starts offering military help to Afghanistan due to its own geopolitical interests. Russia, on the other hand, already has a war on its hand. So it's not going to particularly militarily support it, but yes, politically, as well as on various stages such as UN and other places, they might offer support to the Taliban regime so that USA does not find feet in Afghanistan as well and regain the Bagram airbase and more. So Pakistan is playing a very, very dirty game, walking a very tight rope, and there will be more than one spears that are going to poke its legs while it tries to balance out all its interests while betraying every single partner that it has had over the history.
All right, ma'am, requesting you to stay on with us as we're tracking further updates, this time from Brazil. We're learning that at least 64 people have lost their lives in Rio de Janeiro's police raids targeting a major gang ahead of various COP30 events scheduled in the city. Remember, next week, Rio will host the C40 Global Summit of Mayors to tackle climate change. The city is also set to host Prince William's Earthshot Prize, which will feature celebrities including Kylie Minogue and four-time F1 world champion Sebastian Vettel. Now, the programming is part of the run-up to COP30, United Nations Climate Summit, which is set to be held in the Brazilian city of Belém from the 10th of November to the 21st. Police have often conducted such large-scale operations against criminal groups ahead of major events in Rio, including the 2016 Olympics, the 2024 G20 Summit, and the BRICS Summit earlier in July this year. However, this particular police raid operation has been the deadliest that the city has ever seen. Meanwhile, the UN Human Rights Office has stated that it is horrified by the raids and the loss of lives. It's urged Brazilian authorities to act in accordance with international human rights law as well. Still with us on the broadcast is Ms. Shruti Dasgupta. I've highlighted, in fact, some of the instances where we've seen such raids take place before, whether it's the Olympics, it's BRICS as well, the G20 summit that took place last year. Why is this? Is this some sort of pattern that emerges just before international events? The Brazilian authorities up the ante against these gangs that are operating. Is it a genuine effort, or is it just optics?
Well, it is both. One is because Brazil suffers from large cartels, drug cartels, money laundering cartels, as well as gangs that operate as a parallel system inside its own economy, which harms Brazil in economic level, as a social level, as well as it harms the world, because such kind of organizations find safe haven, despite the nation and its government trying to do cleanup operations repeatedly, as you pointed out. What is curious is that they always do these cleanup operations right before big events. Basically, they try and put pressure on these gang members so that there is no major incident in the coming days, where international monitors would be looking very closely at each and every incident. So it's a kind of stopgap arrangement to ensure that the organization is shaken up. They never actually get the heads. They always say they're targeting it. They never get the heads. They always get the junior members of the gang, maybe medium level member of the gangs. They conduct arrests, but somehow these people are back again. They've done this as far as earlier this year also, but they still have to do it again. So within a span of a few months, if they're having to do large scale raid attacks, on gang members, then Brazil needs to understand that it has to restructure the way it looks at its own cartel related issues, and it cannot be only when major events are going to happen in the nation and it is going to impact its international image. Does the government and the authorities wake up and try and take any actions to prevent any incident of international dishonor happening?
All right, ma'am, with that, I'd like to thank you for taking out time sharing your analysis with us on NewsX World. With that, viewers, we're shifting focus to Mexico. We're now learning that the Mexican Navy has stated that it is searching for the sole survivor after U.S. strikes have destroyed 4 alleged drug smuggling boats in the Eastern Pacific, killing at least 14 people. The operation is taking place more than 400 nautical miles southwest of Acapulco, and Mexico says that it is acting at the request of the U.S. Coast Guard. Washington has called the dead people narco-terrorists. The strikes are the first confirmed near Mexican waters since the U.S. has launched its offensive against Latin American traffickers last month. The toll now rises to at least 57 killed in this campaign. But Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum has condemned the attacks, urging the United States to respect international treaties and handle drug trafficking through diplomacy and not force. Shifting focus to more developments coming in, Hurricane Melissa has now moved away from Jamaica and is heading towards Cuba and other parts of the Caribbean as well. The hurricane has re-strengthened to a Category 4 system as it swept across Jamaica, leaving widespread damage and killing at least 3 people. Anticipating the hurricane's arrival, Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel has urged citizens in coastal areas to seek safety while directing emergency services to prepare for possible landslides and storm surges. Meanwhile, in Jamaica itself, officials have claimed that over 500,000 residents now remain without electricity after the hurricane teared through the island yesterday. According to Jamaican authorities, flooding and strong winds have caused structural damage at medical facilities in Falmouth, Montego Bay and St. Elizabeth, but patients were evacuated to safety in time. Additionally, the Jamaican Minister of Local Government and Community Development has reported that crews were earlier struggling to reach isolated communities which were cut off by flooded roads and landslides. He's also added that emergency crews are on standby to begin damage assessments and deliver relief supplies as soon as the conditions allow. Listen in.
Up to 4 o'clock this afternoon, over 530,000 Jamaicans, representing 77.33% of JPS customers island-wide, are without electricity. Work is presently underway to restore our service, to give priorities to the critical facilities such as hospitals and water and pumping stations, weather permitting. Right across the country, almost every parish is experiencing block road, fallen trees, utility poles, and excess flooding in many communities. Anian Town, Alley, Seven Rivers in St. James are experiencing flooded bridges, and I guess by the time we have our next update, there will be more bridges across the country.
Meanwhile, in the Jamaican capital city of Kingston, large waves have pounded the shoreline. Listen in to what some of the local residents have stated about the storm's impact and torrential rain that followed.
The fact that we take a wide turn and go around, it benefit me. I'm really sorry for who it really touched, because they're my fellow Jamaicans and we are love, right? And you know our motto, to many people, we are one. So we're really sorry really who get damaged, but trust me, it's not no joke. It's not no joke.
Thinking to myself, that's why, because the storm was like coming off, and if you look at it, it would be like we getting some dangerous thing and it just divert and shift and take it to most of the countryside. I was saying, yeah, God is saying something to somebody down there, or saying something to the people.
Earlier today, U.S. President Donald Trump put out a statement that Washington is ready to provide aid to Jamaica and that the United States is closely monitoring the storm's impact. Well, viewers, due to paucity of time, this is all we have for this bulletin. More news and updates on the other side. Stay tuned on NewsX World as we dip into a quick shot.